Welcome to New Tom's Digital Minutes. We are in the digital transformation business, and this is our 5th podcast. Today we will talk about the application network and API-led connectivity. Let's begin. Change creates the necessity for an application network. Think about that sentence for a minute. We've witnessed an unprecedented amount of change in the last decade. The customer landscape has changed. In fact, the entire enterprise ecosystem has changed, and organizations are struggling to cope with this. Digital transformation has spread fast like wildfire across all industries. As a result, businesses can't be chained down to a technological or cultural legacy systems that weighs them down in the effort to launch new products and experiences. But there's hope. There is a way forward. It's not just about technology. It's about changing the way IT and the business work together with technology. The way to be successful in today's modern world is to create an application network. So, you might be thinking, what's the idea behind it? It's simple. The idea is to create an infrastructure that lends itself to information exchange. In other words, it makes it easy for someone in the organization to create something useful, like an application, use of data, or an API, and then expose the value in it to the network for others to use. The goal is to provide a framework that promotes agility, flexibility, and speed that businesses need to meet today's demands. It's important to understand that to make this happen, a business needs to create an application network structured in a specific way and built with a few guiding principles in mind. We'll go into the structure a little bit more later in the podcast, but right now, let's talk about the key principles. These are simple principles that, when combined, are the recipe for flexibility, scalability, and agility. It's the philosophy we need to instill in our application network. The first is reusability. The APIs that make up the application network must be designed with the audience in mind. It means making sure the right language and terminology is used, making sure we get as much information from the end user to satisfy their needs and encourage future reuse. The second principle is self-service. Think of it as a buffet. It's designed to allow consumers access to food with little interaction with the restaurant staff. People can be fed much faster and much more efficiently this way. The restaurant only needs to ensure the quality of the food is great, the facilities are kept clean, and the atmosphere is nice. The same concept should be applied in an application network. People need to be allowed and empowered to self-serve, grab pieces of information and bits of functionality to achieve their goals. IT should only be concerned with data security, governance, and network maintenance. Composability is the third principle. An application network needs to be designed to promote reusability within the organization. The API layers that make up the network need to be designed to deliver a set of solutions to address the business pain points. And at the same time, it needs to be designed to connect assets to an audience, whether it's an internal audience like different LOBs, specific departments within those LOBs, or external partners like clients and vendors. The fourth and last guiding principle is security and governance. Designing an application network that provides access to central enterprise data is crucial to speed up business initiatives. But that doesn't mean that everyone should have access to every piece of data. IT should have governance over all business data. I'm sure by now you might have noticed these are straightforward principles, and they're easy to achieve, but it requires a change in the relationship between IT and the rest of the business. It requires a culture that empowers employees to create their own solutions. Now, let's get into the way this application network should be structured and connected. The integration applications must be more than just APIs. The APIs can only serve as a presentation layer on top of a set of connectivity flows. This is critical to understand. Without it, API to API connectivity would simply be a fancy way of saying point-to-point integration. I laid the foundation with the key principles of a successful application network. Now I'm going to continue to build on top of those principles by explaining how an application network needs to be structured to achieve them. The most logical way to go about this is taking an API-led connectivity approach. It consists of a multi-tier architecture made up of 3 different API layers: the system layer, the process layer, and the experience layer. Let's get into each one of them. The system layer is the foundation of all the business processes in an organization. This is the layer of APIs where all the core legacy systems exist. For example, the API is connected to an organization's ERP, customer and billing system, and proprietary databases are some examples. These systems are not easily accessible, yet they are immensely important to large organizations. System APIs provide the best means of accessing these archaic systems to exposing that hard-to-get data. The System API layer is all about unlocking assets' potential and decentralizing access. This API layer must be solid and reliable because it's the foundation of the entire application network. For this reason, it should be governed by central IT. The next layer is the process layer. It sits on top of the system layer. The underlying business logic and processes that shape the data in this layer should be independent from the source of the data and from the channels through which the data is to be delivered. To better illustrate this point, I'll give the following example. There are business processes that share some common logic across product, retail channels, and LOBs. Those processes, like the typical purchase order process, should be distilled into service APIs. This second layer is all about driving agility and new value creation. The idea is to create APIs that perform specific functions or provide access to non-central data that can be used and reused by any LOB for any product, service, or channels anytime. The third and top layer of the API-led connectivity network is the experience layer. This is the layer we're probably most familiar with as consumers. At this point, the data is consumed across a broader set of channels, each of which needs access to the same data but displayed in different ways. A brick-and-mortar store point-of-sale system, e-commerce site, and mobile shopping app might need the same customer information, but each will require the information to be presented in different formats. This is the layer where the data can be rearranged or modified so that it can be easily consumed by its intended audience. The beauty and simplicity of API-led connectivity is that the data consumed at the experience layer by an organization's employees or its customers originates from a common data source, as opposed to building independent point-to-point integrations for each channel. Now that I've talked about the three API layers that embody the API-led connectivity approach to application networks, I'd like to leave you with the obvious benefits of API-led connectivity approach and how it can help your organization grow in the midst of digital disruption. From a business perspective, management ultimately cares about keeping the numbers in the green and keeping their shareholders happy. To do that, they know their business model needs to be flexible and agile. API-led connectivity lends itself to do just that, because it's intended to follow the principles of reusability and self-service. When combined, these two concepts directly increase developer productivity, which appeals to executives concerned with the bottom line. From a technical perspective, it's important to recognize that API-led connectivity is a tailored approach to integration. It recognizes that there is not a one-size-fits-all architecture. This means that connectivity challenges need to be addressed in pieces that can be exposed through an API or microservices. This makes it easier to tackle the challenge at hand. It's ideal for an organization pursuing a bimodal IT strategy, a two-pronged approach to delivering innovation and maintenance, where one focus is to keep the lights on, and the other focus is on business advancing tasks. API-led connectivity addresses the need to manage changes to core systems of records, while at the same time being flexible for web and mobile applications where continuous innovation is critical. Not only that, an API-connected network has a higher operational visibility. That's because it gives the opportunity to gain end-to-end insight from receipt of the initial API request call to fulfillment of that request based on the underlying query. At each step of the flow, fine-grained analysis is possible, which is incredibly beneficial when troubleshooting. The whole point of setting up an application network is to thrive in the face of change. Like the Greek philosopher Heraclitus once said, the only constant is change. We're in a world of extreme competitiveness. It's not the biggest or the strongest that survive. Rather, it's the fast that eats the slow. One of our goals at New Toms is to help clients build or enhance their application networks, following the guidelines and principles I've discussed in this podcast. We make it possible by implementing API-led connectivity powered by MuleSoft. We are happy to discuss how an application network could help your organization. feel free to contact us. We respond to any request 24/7 because our staff is strategically located around the globe. We speak English, Spanish, and Filipino. Our offices are located in Alpharetta, Georgia, USA, Mexico City, Mexico, Valencia, Venezuela, Manila, Philippines. Please contact us at www.newtoms.com for more information. We thank you for listening to our 4th Newtoms Digital Minutes podcast, and we encourage you to listen to our 5th podcast to be released very soon. We will talk about the API software development lifecycle. You have listened to Newtoms Digital Minutes. We are in the digital transformation business. Stay tuned for the next one.